You're listening to the Fantasy Fling Podcast. Take a break from the season-long commitment and join us for a Friday fling as we give you the newest and hottest DFS deals, preview the DFS main slate, and take the dreadful walk of shame. Here are your hosts, Brandon and Eric.
Welcome into Makin A Milli. I'm sorry we didn't do the show last week. I'm here. It's week 2, your Milli Maker preview, your Milli Maker look back. And I got to tell you, a lot has been happening in my life. I have joined DFS Army this year, who I've been an affiliate for. Joined them as a content creator, looking back at the Milli Maker, doing MME strategy review, also doing some Yahoo DFS content. And it's absolutely crazy because the whole reason I started doing the Milli Maker review and just really kind of inspired this show was I was listening to DFS Army's Kevin Allen, the Geek, say you need to replay these old matchups in your head. You need to back test. This is how you take down the Milli Maker. This is how you are successful in DFS. And so 2 years I've been looking at the Milli Maker. I have started, doing content for them. I've been joining Kevin Allen as he does the back testing streams, which he did they did all last season prior to the beginning of the NFL season. And DFS Army, longtime VIP, Rapid Fire XD, I'm going to show you right now, actually took down the Milli Maker week 1. So the thing that was craziest about it is it was 5 times the amount of entries of the normal Milli Maker. So that just goes to show DFS Army that they know their shit, their cheat sheets, their domination station, everything. And this is exactly what you do. You take down a field of 1.1 million. Like, it's crazy. And I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to show you Rapid Fire XD. I'm going to show you his winning lineup real quick here. And then I'm going to show you what I found out when I went back to the domination station and did the back test. So that's how we're going to start this broadcast as we look into week 2 of the Milli Maker, because seeing the Discord go crazy when he won was something that I always wanted to be a part of, and I'm glad I was able to be a part of it. It's super special. So let's take a look real quick here. In fact, I am going to share my screen so y'all can see this. So let's do it. Entire screen. Boom. All right. So here we are. Rapid Fire XD. So one thing we learned by looking back at the Milli Maker last year is a lot of the normal, like, heavy game stacks that you would see, they didn't work last year. So scoring was down. So obviously, if scoring's down, hitting one game where, you're hoping for it to shoot out, it's less likely, because these games were not shooting out. So it's more so taking small pieces of various games to win the Milli Maker last year. So that continued in week 1. We saw Patrick Mahomes to a Kelsey stack, and, there was no ring back option in that game. Saquon Barkley, he was underpriced. He was in a smash spot, and he smashed 36 points. He was only 6,100. Antonio Gibson, one of the lower scoring guys, but, still scored 20 points in that game. And, there was a couple secondary stacks. So the other stack that really smashed was Justin Jefferson, who really DFS Army was all over it. Top play on the slate. He was 42 points. He was only 12.5% owned, which is really surprising in a field of that large, with him being in such a smash spot for week 1. But yeah, the secondary stack there was Romeo Doubs, who only scored 8 points, but it doesn't matter when you got a ceiling performance like that from Justin Jefferson. That's really what you're looking for. And Romeo Doubs, 8 points, but 3,000. So still hit 2x. Pittman, another guy in an absolute smash spot. Now, he was the chalkiest player in this lineup, 30 points. This just goes to show you can play chalk. This is something we found out as we'll look at. You can play chalk in the Milli Maker or in large field GPPs like the Milli Maker. You just have to somehow get different in your construction somewhere else. So be willing to eat the good plays, the chalk, as long as you can get different elsewhere. Christian Kirk, smashed 2, 5,100, scored 20 points. We'll take that. And he was in a secondary stack with Antonio Gibson. So you had a little bit of that there. So 3 stacks total. And then the Steelers D. Now, this is where I go to the domination station, and I've been preaching this for literally an entire year of me doing the Milli Maker and telling everyone the Domination Station DFS Army is legit. It kept putting the Steelers D in all my lineups, and I was stoked about it. But I did limit a little bit of exposure because they were going against Burrow, and I was like, well, what if Burrow has a good game? I don't want it to crash all my lineups. I ended up having a profitable day, some really good lineups. Scored well over 200 points, so I was happy about it. I wish I had played more Steelers D because DFS Army Domination Station just kept cramming it into everyone's lineups. No one was happier about it than Rapid Fire XD, though. As you see here, 3% ownership, 26 points. He hit 251 total. Absolutely crushed it. It was really wild to see DFS Army VIP win the Milli Maker with that many entries. It was absolutely nuts. But, as I mentioned with that back test, I went back to the Domination Station and was able to replicate the winning lineup. Patrick Mahomes, Saquon Barkley, Antonio Gibson, Romeo Doubs, Michael Pittman Jr., Christian Kirk, Travis Kelce, Justin Jefferson, Steelers D, using the back test feature. So this is what I talk about when I say you need to do DFS Army. You need to have a membership at DFS Army. In fact, because of the Milli Maker winner, Rapid Fire XD, they are extending their 20% off VIP subscription. It's 20% off. Use code NFL 2022. This is the last week to get it. I mean, the results speak for themselves. What more do you need? In fact, prior to this, in the showdown to open the season, there was another Milli Maker winner who, won the showdown with DFS Army, but had to split it with several people. So didn't win $1 million, but that's the second one this year. And here we are in week 2. So absolutely incredible. When I use the Domination Station, things to keep in mind. I do tournament mode. I do 3 unique players. I set an ownership cap, up to 120%. It kind of depends on the week. It might vary from like 100 to 120%. If you think it's going to be a little chalkier, that week you go higher. But again, with that, you have to be on the right players too, right? So the good thing is we were on Patrick Mahomes last week. We were on Saquon Barkley. We were on Justin Jefferson. So we were on Michael Pittman. You can't just go to the optimizer and click the button and think you're going to win $1 million. Your process needed to have led you to those players. But you see that when you do, what can happen? You get the right players that you want that could take down the Milli Maker. So when we're going to take a look at the week 2 slate real quick and kind of do a quick preview of some of the players that I like. And we'll do a little build here for what I like with the Milli Maker. So let's change this to the main slate this week. We're off of the back test. We are NFL. We're playing DraftKings. We're doing we're doing the main slate. So some of the highest projected games of total. Now, one thing we looked at last year when in fact, go over to dfsarmy.com each and every week and read this article because what I do each and every week is I do a Milli Maker write-up. And I look at total ownership, what it was on the seasons, what it was that week. So we can kind of compare it to not just any one week, but really multiple years of looking at this. We look at by the position, what is the average ownership of the running back? What is it of the wide receiver? So on and so forth, tight end. We look at how many times you play a wide receiver was in the flex, a running back was in the flex, a tight end was in the flex. So these are things that you want to keep an eye on because these averages play out over the course of a season. So you want to keep that in mind. It's like regressing to the mean. Average price. One thing, for example, just want to point out real quick, and you can read this in the article, you'll notice the average price of the running back tends to go down as the season goes on. Why is that? Well, you can think of it. Running backs get hurt. So then people they flock to the chalk plays and they'll play the chalky running backs who are going to get a lot of volume at a good value. So that's something to keep in mind as the running backs get hurt as the season goes on. So, we look at things like that, trying to spot trends. One thing too, when I mentioned the Vegas lines are important. But That said, 10 out of 17 weeks, we saw a winning lineup that featured stacks outside of the highest projected game totals, the top 5 highest projected. So, you do want to target players from those stacks, but you also want to look at, ways to get contrarian. And one of the best ways to do that is to target games outside of those top 5, because not a lot of people are always on them. And there's almost always, as you will see here, there's almost always a stack or a combination of players that you can use from those games in your lineup. We look at leverage trends, stacking trends over the season. Like I said, we saw 22 team stacks last year versus 15 game stacks. So team stacks actually were used more often than game stacks in winning Milli Maker lineups. And as I mentioned, scoring was down. So, those two are certainly related to that. So that's something you would want to check out over at dfsarmy.com. Is I post this each and every week for DFS Army, doing the Milli Maker write-up that I was bringing to you last week. And, I will do that MME Milli Maker review as well. And then we will continue to bring Makin A Milli. So as we look into week 2, we're going to look at some of these highest projected games. So, and then we're going to look at maybe some under projected games that I'm really looking at targeting. So the Raiders in Arizona, I can tell you right now, I think this is going to be chalky. Derek Carr is coming as one of the chalkiest quarterbacks. Devontae Adams coming as one of the chalkiest wide receivers. So if you're playing this game, you have to be looking to get direct leverage off of those players, maybe a Waller, maybe a Renfro, maybe you play Kyler Murray on the other side, because that's going to be probably a very chalky combination stack. So one thing to think about. And then another game that is real popular, Washington versus Detroit. That's the second highest projected game. And then we also have LA versus the Falcons. So there are games where I like team stacks, and mainly team stacks. Denver versus Houston, LA versus Atlanta, and I do like Cincinnati versus Dallas. So from a team stacking perspective. Now, I do think with the Washington-Detroit game, you can target game stacks, and same thing with Arizona and Las Vegas. So let's take a look at this real quick as far as some of the top plays. Now, one thing when I'm looking at playing GPP is I'm going right away. I'm going to maybe projections over at dfsarmy.com on the domination station. I'm looking at the highest projected plays, and I am looking at low ownership. So Lamar at 7%, that is something that I do really like this week, under 10%. I'm looking at under 10%, guys. As I mentioned, the Arizona-Las Vegas game, you play the other side of it maybe. You got Kyler Murray, 5% ownership. Stafford under 10%. Russell Wilson this week. This is probably where I'm going to go in my Milli Maker build. I like Wilson this week as a bounce back. The Broncos paid him a heck of a lot of money. They didn't play any of their starters in the preseason game, so I think that rust had a lot to do with it last week with Denver's offense, especially being in a hostile environment, which is an emotional game for Wilson. So I'm going to have in tournaments, these actually are my 3 quarterbacks that I'm going to be playing the most. Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson, and Joe Burrow. They're all coming in at low ownership. So you like that because there's different ways you can get different with your stacks, even if you have Cooper Kupp, who maybe is, going to be more higher owned and whatnot. So that's something to certainly consider right away, looking at the quarterbacks and seeing guys who are lower owned. Running backs. Now, this is, often going to be one of the more chalky positions. So you have to be willing to eat chalk here, and maybe you get different in your stacking options. So one thing that stands out to me right away, you got Jonathan Taylor, 9%. He's very high priced, but they have no Michael Pittman. They have no Pierce. So maybe they're just going to run the offense through Jonathan Taylor and the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are the Jaguars. They're not world beaters. So I could see Jonathan Taylor absolutely smashing. He would need a ceiling game, but he's certainly capable of that. So just keep in mind at 9,900, he's going to have to score over 40 points for him to be in winning GPP lineup. So Christian McCaffrey, he looked great last week. He just didn't get enough carries. So, he's not too chalky that I certainly would fade him. I certainly would have some interest in him in big tournaments. Barkley, I'd play Barkley at 20%. I'm not going to play him at 40%, but I play him at 20%. So Joe Mixon's a guy I really like. He's in the Nets 6 times last week. That's a 7-point spread. That's exactly the kind of situation you want to play him. I will play him in cash, but I would be willing to play him in GPP too, because he's really not going to be that high owned. Uncle Lenny, I like him this week too. Going against New Orleans, Brady hasn't done very well. They're pretty banged up at wide receiver. Godwin's out. Julio might be out. So I could definitely see them running the ball. DeAndre Swift, he had a great week last week. He's 11%. That's not too high. That's a high projected game. They love to run the offense through him. He, is a PPR machine with all the targets that he gets. Certainly we'll have some Javonte exposure. And, it's mix in some of these backs. So James Conner, that could be a good leverage play off of the chalkier pieces in that game. Maybe you just, as opposed to playing Devontae Adams, you just play James Conner, or maybe, you do like a little game stack of James Conner and Renfro or Waller potentially while everyone's playing Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. So those are some real good options there. As far as my wide receivers, as we said, Devontae Adams is going to be chalk. Cup, pretty low actually for Cooper Kupp. For a guy who just absolutely smashes all the time. Pretty low percentage. So got to have some exposure to him. Mike Evans. They always say Mike Evans, he gets shut down by Marcus Lattimore. So he's, not looking to get played. There's a lot of stacking options in that game because they're coming in at low owned. So I do like that. Nobody wants to play Mike Evans. Fine, I'll play him. I'll play Julio. Julio looked good last week. I'll play Michael Thomas. He looked good last week. Nobody's really owning him. So, I do like those options. I mentioned Russell Wilson and Judy. So the good thing is they're still pretty low owned and they're good priced. I like Judy a little bit better, but I would probably do a double stack in some lineups just because, trying to get different. Maybe Russell Wilson really goes off for 4 to 5 touchdowns and 5,600, 6,100. They're both pretty cheap. Same ownership. They split target share last week, 16%. So I'll take chances with that a few different ways. Also, AJ Hamler is out. So the target tree I do expect to be a little more condensed this week. Also, T. Higgins, if he plays, I like him in some Joe Burrow stacks. So mix it up a few different ways. Maybe do Mixon, Burrow, Higgins, or, Higgins, Chase. You can go several different ways with it. I do like, if the game script is what you think it's going to be, playing Burrow, playing Higgins, playing Mixon, combinations like that. With the concussion, a lot of people might not be on Higgins this week if he plays. So, that is some consideration for me. Also, I mentioned Michael Thomas. He's getting low ownership. He looked great last week. Got 2 touchdowns, 5% target share. So he's in play for me. I mentioned Renfro as a potential option off of leverage off of Adams. Now the guy, Allen Robinson, they said they need to get him more targets. He's 5,500. He's 9% owned. He really does not need to do much to pay off on his salary. Okay. He can have 15, 20 points and really smash for his salary. So, I will eat all that up. And the good thing is if he is 5,500, you can play him and Cooper Kupp together. So that is something that I certainly like. Now, real quick, just want to show you how to use the domination station as far as what I would be looking to do. Things we've learned by doing the back testing. Now, again, code NFL 2022, 20% a VIP subscription, 20% off last week to do this. This has been extended because of Rapid Fire XC's takedown of the Milli Maker. So, guys, I'm telling you, you have to use these tools. It makes life so much easier and keeps your 2 things that I really like about using an optimizer. It keeps bias out of it because there are times when I have too much of a bias. So this helps me spread my player pool out a little bit and eliminate some of my biases that I may have against players that could cost me money too. And also it takes away a lot of the brain work. I like this guy. I like this guy. I like these running backs. I like these wide receivers. I'm going to put in these settings that we've known using this over and over in back testing will work. and then I will hit the optimize button. And then I just start plugging in my lineups. So a lot less brain work to do so. And, the optimizer, I just trust DFS Army's projections. As I said last week, when we look back at Rapid Fire Axes Takedown, the Steelers kept popping up in the optimizer over and over. I was like, why is this popping up over and over? Well, for good reason. 26 points, 3% owned. You just have to trust it. You got to trust the process. So, anyways, back to this. Russell Wilson, wide receiver, tight end, stack. We got that rule in there. I do think last week the overall projected ownership was probably higher than it's going to be most weeks. So I'm probably going to set this at about 100, 110. We're going to do maybe 50 lineups. We put this in tournament mode, 3 uniques. Disallow more than one pass catcher unless it's from the same tight end. Okay, 30% running back, tight end 0%. I don't think it's gonna be a 2 tight end. Yeah, maybe it will be. Maybe we put in like 20%, 10%, and wide receiver 100% randomization. And then at this point, we're targeting some plays that we really like. So as I mentioned, give me some JT. I like Christian McCaffrey. I love Mixon this week. Some of these guys that aren't going to be super chalky. We're going to put in some of these guys. So that's, running back, wide receiver. All right. So as I mentioned, Sutton, Judy, Higgins. Nobody's playing CeeDee Lamb. Okay. I like it. Jamar Chase. He's 9% owned. So, Allen Robinson, Michael Thomas. Julio, give me some Julio. If he plays. Now, obviously, if Julio doesn't play, you go out and you change these lineups. Typically, I'm going to be honest with you all. I don't really start building lineups until Sunday morning because I look for those late Saturday night Adam Schefter tweets. I get up bright and early on Sunday morning, get my coffee, and then I start building lineups. Because I'll have a better idea of how to leverage the field when I know who's going to be in and who's going to be out. So Mark Andrews is a guy I really like this week. Like I said, Darren Waller, I like him too. So specifically with no, I like Albert O. With no Travis Kelce, I think you got to get a little bit of Andrews and Waller exposure because if they go off, it's going to be hard to win without them. And then for defense, what we're going to do is you're normally going to try to find – you're going to pay up in the Milli Maker at defense, and you're going to find a little bit of lower owners. So you don't necessarily pay all the way up, but you're going to find a defense in a good matchup. So I could see Denver going against Houston. Also, the Bengals, they are going to be chalk, so we probably want to avoid that. Why are the Ravens not going to be owned? That seems crazy to me. So the Ravens going against Miami, 3,600. I like that. I could see the Giants, 3,200, especially if you get some Saquon in there. Some nice correlation. Let's see what we can do here. So the optimizer normally goes pretty quick. One thing I always do is I put 10% randomization in there, and that really helps spit out lineups just a little bit quicker. All right, so we're getting a lot of Derek Carr. As I mentioned, I'm not too fond of Derek Carr this week because I think he's going to be too high owned. So let's go look at these exposures now. Sometimes you just got to change this on your own. So Derek Carr, 42%. Russell Wilson, 2%. They don't like Russell Wilson this week. We're going to do Russell Wilson 50%. We're going to do Derek Carr, a minimum exposure of Wilson 50%. And then Carr, we're going to do 25% maximum exposure. And then we're going to rerun this. Again, the optimizer, it will only do what you tell it to do. So, you're not going to hit optimize and win $1 million. You have to be in on the right place. But you learn things by studying past slates on how to maximize the settings to get what you want it to do. So let's look at this. We got Russell Wilson, 49%. Derek Carr. Now, don't get me wrong. I will have some exposure to Derek Carr, but in a field like the Milli Maker, I want to get off a little bit of some of that chalk. Carson Wentz, Trey Lance. Okay, so these are some lineups that I do like with Wilson. Yeah, look at this. You got Russell Wilson, Jonathan Taylor, Jerry Jeudy, Albert Ogbonna, Joe Mixon. These are now this guy, Ashton Doolin, 3,200 a minimum. But what if Jonathan Taylor has a 40-point game? Saquon Barkley has a 30-point game. Joe Mixon was in the lineup, the nuts 6 times last year, has, 25, 30-point game. And then a Russell Wilson, Jeudy stack actually smashes. This lineup has a great chance of finishing right where you want it to. Now, there's a couple guys I would probably change a couple things here. I don't want a couple minimum price guys really not stacked. I just don't want that at all. Well, I guess Doolin, I do like Doolin here because he is in a stack with Jonathan Taylor. So that's something I will certainly consider. Let's take a look at some of these other Wilson stacks and see what it gave us. I believe there's one above here. Yeah, Russell Wilson, Mixon, okay, Jeudy, Dortch, Juwan, Devontae Adams. So yeah, that's got a Devontae Adams, Dortch stack in it. Devontae. Okay. Yeah, we'll play around with it a little bit. Ooh, I like this one. Wilson, Taylor, Barkley, Sutton, Jeudy. So really, like if the double stack with Sutton and Jeudy goes off, and let's say the Broncos just pummel the Texans, and you got a good team stack here, which we saw a lot in the Milli Maker. You got Jonathan Taylor, you got Saquon Barkley, and this also has Henderson in a positive game script and the Bengals D. So these are some options that I do like. I probably would mix this up a little bit, try get like Jonathan Taylor out of this lineup at 9,900 and change it up to where I can get another wide receiver in here in like the 5K range so that you don't have 2 minimums, because I'm struggling to see how that's going to have the ceiling you need to take down the Milli Maker. But you can see with the domination station, you could put so many different you can hit it from so many different angles. So, yeah, I like this lineup too with Higgins, with Devontae Adams, Jonathan Taylor, Henderson. A lot of different ways you can go with this. But that's probably going to do it for week 2 Milli Maker preview. Best of luck to you all. Again, we will go back to our normal format next week. And again, if you have any questions, specifically Milli Maker questions, hit me up over at Fantasy Fling on Twitter. Hope you all have the best week. Hope you take down the Milli Maker. I mean, shit. If one of the subscribers, one of the followers for Fantasy Fling took down the Milli, I mean, that would just even top last week. So, good luck, and we will see you all next week. Take care.